Is maturity a bummer or is it a good thing? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, this is Jill from the Northwoods talking about lessons I learned in life one small step at a time. Last week I did something kind of interesting. I went back to this company that I worked with, and I've talked about it before. It was surreal because I was the 360th employee, and now it's like 13,000 people. And it was a tour for people who were working with the company. But walking through the halls again, seeing the offices. In fact, I ran into someone I used to work with. Good thing I lost 75 pounds because I'm like, that's what you want to do when you run into someone you haven't seen in a while is lose weight. But I remember, it as being a place where it was a difficult place to work. People got fired all the time. It was cutthroat, left and right. Nobody walked away with good reviews. The big thing that you knew someone was doing okay is when they worked there for many, many years. So if you walk around in this town and you tell people I worked at this company for 10 years, they'll hire you because it's such a hard company. Most people probably don't last 18 months. And I mentioned, I had ADHD. I was a hard worker. I've always been a hard worker. I've always been dedicated to work. I throw myself probably too much into it. But in this particular case, they demanded a lot more, and it made me better. It's beyond just the long hours and the intense deadlines and the sense that you have to prove yourself every single day, which can feel overwhelming and unfair, honestly, at times. Now, standing there at this tour, I realized that it made me a better person. It shaped the way I am. I became a better employee. I became more organized. I learned how to go through projects properly. And it really taught me also how to stay calm when things were falling apart, when I feel like something wasn't working very well. It sharpened my problem-solving skills because I didn't have the luxury of falling apart at this company. If I went to my boss and said, "Look, I am making a hash of this. This project isn't going well. Could I get some help?" I'd probably be just let go and that project will go to someone else. There was no idea or sense of you can get help at this company. And so it forced me to grow a thicker skin, to separate my identity from criticism. It helped me build resilience that I have carried to every job since then. And, it's funny. I remember, I've been involved in projects, and it's sometimes when the project isn't going well or someone's super mad. I remember I got off a plane once and this person says, "Well, you seem like a nice lady, but we're not using your software." I could immediately been insulted, depressed. Instead, resilience. I'm going to find a way. I'm going to find a way. That's the idea. And it made me more resourceful and more mature. At the time, it felt like a burden, but now it really turned out, when I look back at it, it was a gift. It was a thing that made me a mature person. Not that I was immature before. I always liked being young, and I was always that person who watched cartoons and played video games. Nothing wrong with any of that. But it was also this idea that, if something went wrong, you'd say, well, things go wrong. And sometimes you're right. Sometimes things go wrong. But then there's a part of you where you take accountability for the things that is your part in it. And that is the sense of maturity. Or maybe I didn't cause it to go wrong, but it's my job to fix it. And that comes with us from the hardest seasons in our life, the toughest environments. And when you look back at those times and those situations, you'll figure out that that is where you have grown the most. And that's really what kind of happened to me in all of this. I had that experience, and like I said, it was just sort of surreal. I think maturity gets a bad kick in life. That people think that, adults are boring, or I had to do some adulting this weekend, which usually means I had to pay taxes, I had to do something I didn't want to do, but I had to do it because, that's life itself. But I don't think we should do that to maturity. Act like it's the unfun thing that's in this room. It obviously is not the most fun we have in life sometimes when we have to act like an adult or do the mature thing or stand up for the time when we have to do it. We're all called to do it. And we're either going to learn how to be adults early or we're going to learn how to be adults later on in life when it's even harder. Psychologically, emotionally, neurologically, we grow But sometimes we put ourselves on pause just because we wanna stay kids forever. And we've done even, more of that. When I was growing up, it was expected to you that at 18 years old, more like when you graduated from your senior year, you kinda had to be an adult. Now, maybe you're gonna go to college, and so then there's sort of like a little bit another 4 years of you learning a little bit more, but even at that point, I still had to pay my own bills, I had to go and get myself to class, I had to talk to professors who may or may not like me, and deal with things as an adult. And it seems like we have put that off a number of years. To the point I was reading a story about how bosses at work are getting calls from their grown mid-20s employees' parents. You're not being very fair with my kid." Oh, man, you would have done that back when I was a kid, or not when I was a kid, but when I was in my 20s, you'd probably just get fired because, you're not living your own life anymore. You're not even really an adult. And now I think we allow it. Uh, but, like I said, I think it's because we have such a negative view of what being an adult is. And instead of us having this negative idea, you know what it helps us do? It helps us handle more things in life. It lets us become more balanced, have more self-control, have more perspective, get along with people we disagree with because we're adults. I don't agree with you. I don't like what you're saying, but you have the right to say it, and I accept that you said it, and that's it. You leave it there. That's the idea. Maturity is a superpower that makes you more resilient, less reactive, and better at making small steps, big leaps, and becoming a leader in whatever it is you decide that you're going to become a leader in. The idea is, if we talk about our brains, right? They talk about this prefrontal cortex. It's a part of the brain that's responsible for executive function, impulse control. That's what ADHD people have troubles with, is the executive function. I have ADHD. I can tell you I have impulse control problems, planning, long-term decision making, and most of that forms fully in us in our sort of our mid-20s. We become fully functional adults. That's why people will often talk about, like, are you making them make a life decision before their prefrontal cortex is even developed? It's why younger people tend to lean into riskier behavior. They have impulsive decisions. While when you see older people, they tend to weigh options, think about things in a more balanced way. It rewires how you handle stress and conflict, delayed gratification. Like, I'm going to put money in my 401k. Ah, it stinks. I'm not going to see it for like 40 years. I could go on a trip with that. Delayed gratification. But as an adult, you think that's fine because I understand that when I'm at my most vulnerable stage in older age, I want to be taken care of by myself. I want to have taken care of the things I need. That is essentially what it means to be mature. And so that means that it's impulse regulation, resisting the urge to scroll when you should be working, or staying up and recording your podcast when you should be in bed, or eating that snack. You already had enough snacks today, and if you keep eating enough snacks, you're going to put on a lot of weight, or buying the thing just because it's on sale. I saw this lady talking about, but you don't understand how much money I've saved by buying it on sale. And, I remember having that kind of mentality when I was in my 20s, and now I'm like, well, if you don't buy it at all, you saved a lot of money. See, adult. And then you're also more oriented towards the future. You make choices now that will pay off more in months, years, or decades to come. You have that ability to plan more for the future. And then there's something called cognitive flexibility, which means that we're able to shift our strategies. If plan A doesn't work out, then I can figure out another plan. Maybe plan point A, a smaller plan or a different plan entirely. But you get that when you start having more cognitive flexibility. Think about this. You always wanted to go to Paris, and I don't have the money to go to Paris, but I'm going to Paris anyway. I'm just going to rack it up in my credit card because you only live once. And the idea is that maybe, you could just go to Paris in 5 years and have a better time because you've shifted your strategy, you've planned it out a little bit more, and now you're in a place where you can have a great trip to Paris while not wrecking your entire credit history. So that's the idea. And people and studies have found that people with what they call this higher level of emotional regulation, that's the last step of it, reports higher job satisfaction, better productivity. They're more mature at work, and our brains help us choose stability over chaos. And, for some of you might be saying, well, that all sounds really dull, but instead it's a gift because, I'll tell you that when I was a kid, or I would say even in my 20s, I liked doing something different every day. Like I would drive home from work a different way every time. I would figure out a way to wash my dishes differently every time. I had no patterns, and I thought that was a sign of being an exciting young person. I'm random, and I do everything I want when I want to do it. And what I found is that when you act like that, you never get good at that, and you spend 10 times more time driving home, doing your dishes, cleaning up the house, when you could have a set pattern of doing it and you get everything done in a fraction of the time. So now you have more time to do fun things because you have brought yourself down to having this kind of regularity, pattern making, and emotional regulation. And so, like I said, it's a gift. It's something that we should not be fighting. I remember talking to someone, and I was asking them if they were planning on having kids, and they said, well, no, we're having all these exciting vacations. We're going to all these amazing trips all over the world. But I think what they're going to find is that while having trips, I've been on trips. Trips are great. But having a family, having kids, having emotional stability with each other, that's what's going to get you through the long haul, the long time. The love that you have around you are the people that you have around you. And by us deciding that I just want to live my best life, I'm going to stay single, or maybe if I get married, we're just going to travel the world and do what we want, you don't have long-term, the cognitive, the emotional, the social side of yourself. And so that's what it means to put it. And, I have to give a credit. Our parents did that. Our parents gave up having financial, benefits of traveling everywhere and buying the house they want to have and buying all the gaming systems they wanted to have. I remember a friend of mine's father, every paycheck, he bought one piece of furniture. So it meant years of living in a house that had no furniture because it was one chair, then it was the next chair. Oh, now I have a seating for 4 people at a dining room table. Oh, I got to buy the dining room table. So it was working on the dining room table for a year because they had kids, and they have that love and that family around them. Psychology breaks down maturity into several different layers. Like I said, cognitive, emotional, and social. The emotional side is particularly powerful because it's also what leads us into productivity, getting things done. When we're immature emotionally, setbacks seem like catastrophes. We're fragile. We weep at everything that has gone wrong. A bad email has ruined our whole day. A missed deadline feels like the end of the world. A mature emotional processing reframes these moments. Okay, this was tough. It's not forever. Let's just get to the next step. Mature people also tend to respond rather than react. They think about what it is they need to do and take it to the next step. They regulate stress instead of spreading it out like a bomb to everyone else. And they're able to maintain curiosity instead of getting defensive. Oh, my coworker just said something I disagree with. I'm going to unfollow them on Facebook, and then I'm going to tell the boss that they believe in something I don't believe in and hope they get fired. But instead go, it's kind of weird because that person sort of grew up where I grew up. I wonder why they believe differently. Maybe I should ask that person some questions so I can understand them a little bit better. That's the idea. And, like I said, you don't see a lot of that in this world today. And from a productivity standpoint, it can be a gift because when we reduce the amount of emotional friction we have, we can stay calm under pressure. We waste less energy on these drama bombs that we throw all over the place, and we have more energy to act, to do something, to bring things forward. Psychologists talk about it, when they talk about studying grit or resilience. There's a thing in the Finnish culture called sisu, but that idea of having a mature response, acceptance, reframing it, are sort of the biggest predictors of who will actually finish long-term projects. Not raw talent, not IQ, maturity. And you might say, well, that's boring and stupid because it's work, but it's also your long-term projects. That might be that 5-year trip to Paris. For me, it was going on that hike to England. I always wanted to do a big hike, and I was able to do it. It wasn't because I had raw talent. It wasn't because I have a great IQ. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I don't know. But it is because I had the maturity to find the right thing, plan it out, get the money to pay for it, and go do it with my friend. But that's the idea, is you start actually getting, not just for your work and not just for your family, but for you start getting the things you want because you start gaining maturity. And the next step when it comes to maturity, the next gift of maturity is perspective. Oftentimes you'll see people who want a quick, fast win, a quick promotion. And there's nothing wrong with having a promotion or something like that, but it can feel like burnout or constant disappointment. Mature workers understand that big goals are built step by step. And if you listen to my podcast before, you know that's my favorite theme. I remember once I interviewed someone and she ended up being great, so I have nothing against her. But during her interview, I said, well, what would you look at as a sign of success in this job that, you're interviewing for? And she said, well, if I didn't get a promotion within 2 years to a manager, I would be very disappointed. And I'm like, but disappointed how? Like, disappointed like, that stinks, or I'm quitting and I'm going somewhere else. I watched in this company, I hired so many people that they thought that they were going to have instantaneous results, that they thought they were going to be instantly promoted. And one thing I'll tell you, if you ever work for a tech company, and I've worked for a couple now, they're very flat, which means you have a bazillion workers, and then you have some middle manager people, and those managers have like 10 upper managers. There's very few promotions, to be honest with you. Promotions come in the way of you getting more responsibility, that you get a better project, you get something that you're actually kind of interested in. That's where maturity leads for you. So for me, what it turned out is I started out in support and training. And so I'd go out to a customer site, I would implement that customer, and then I'd be their support person, and then I also their trainer. What eventually led me in this company is that eventually I became the fixer of customers who were struggling. I had this knack that I could go out to a customer, and what I would do is I would listen to 20 different teams, hear what their issues were, and then I would get up in front of a large group, like in an auditorium, and I would read back to them the common problems I saw from talking to all of them, and then show them what their solutions were. Then I would write up this big 30-page paper on what their solutions were, handed it to them, and then oftentimes then they would hire me through my company to go and actually help them through those steps. I found a job I really liked, and it was a cool job, and I got to go travel all over the place, including India and New York and LA, and do all sorts of exciting things. But a mature worker understands that big goals are step by step. And, like I said, you will get to the things you want to do without maybe necessarily getting that name on the door, because you'll get patience with the process. You'll understand this is going to take a little while. I can stick with this. Mature people are more likely to set up systems instead of goals. I had a whole podcast and YouTube channel about that. We set up ways of how we work so we succeed instead of just a goal. Like, I don't want to lose 10 pounds. I want to live in a way that will lead me healthier, so that losing 10 pounds is just a natural result of the lifestyle changes I've made. Same thing with work. If I'm productive, if I'm organized, if I come up, in this kind of system, that's the idea, is I have a system for success instead of a goal for success, and that is the bigger arc of progress, whether you're talking about work or you're talking about your home life. And then in research, they talk about this as developmental psychology. The people who are mature move farther away from self-centered thinking towards community-based thinking. In productivity teams means that you're not trying to just go after your personal wins. You're investing in teamwork, mentoring, sustainable growth, that you're looking out for the company as a whole. And when you do, people will respect you more, because if you're that person that's always looking out for you, then everyone knows that. You've seen that in companies where someone is just working out for themselves and they're just looking for their next leap forward, their next promotion. They're going to jump to the next company. It's obvious. It's obvious. Everyone knows it, and they know that you can't be trusted. But instead, when you work together as a team and you start working towards a common goal, that's where it really comes through. I work for a hospital. I want those people to succeed, because when they succeed, people get cured. People are comforted in whatever illnesses they have. I want them to succeed. I don't want me to succeed, because a successful hospital is a benefit to so many people. It's a deeply social idea. It's not a social effort. And what maturity in this way gets you, social maturity, is that you can navigate relationships, particularly at work. Immature communication looks defensive, blame, avoidance, you blaming everybody else. Mature communication leans towards listening, clear feedback, and collaboration. I'm not trying to get ahead. I am trying to help the whole organization. And by helping the whole organization, people will help you get ahead. So it actually works towards your benefit too. A great organizational psychology study showed that teams that had higher collective emotional maturity meant that members could admit to making mistakes, give friendly feedback. We used to have feedback Friday at my last company, and regulate conflicts. And those teams will always outperform teams with raw talent, no matter. So if you have a team, hot shots, brilliant people, great at their jobs, they're good at whatever it is they do, but they have low maturity in there, the mature team is going to do better, because that maturity lowers the coordination cost. Instead of wasting energy on interpersonal dramas and organizing this team, the team can now focus on results and getting results for the good of whatever it is you're working for. So if you're thinking about your own productivity and you're wondering why you're kind of flagging in life or you're stuck, are you creating friction for other people, or are you reducing friction for other people? That's a mature question to ask yourself. And the other hidden benefit of maturity is that you get better sleep. Mature people often set boundaries that keep themselves healthier. They build routines that keep themselves healthier, like exercise, sleeping, eating well. There's less multitasking, meaning that they're able to accept that they have limits. And instead of juggling a million things at once, they understand that they can focus. Resilience to criticism. Mature people can separate identity from feedback. You've seen people who are bad at getting feedback, and then it makes you a better learner when you accept feedback. It makes you a better person. And so even if you don't agree with every ounce of feedback you get, it still makes you better. I got feedback today where I wrote a letter to leadership, an email, a letter. I'm writing letters now. An email to a leadership, and it was just too long. And my boss said something amazing. She said, I just love that my team loves to explain to leadership what happened. But honestly, they don't have time to read that kind of letter. So, or email, letter today. So my 5-paragraph email went to 2. This is what happened. This is what we're doing about it. This is what you can expect. End of story. They're busy. They just don't have time to read my, sort of like, so back in 1937, explanation of a situation, right? That's the idea. And so you can take that feedback and understand, okay, I need to do better. The idea, too, is when you sort of declutter your own priorities, maturity helps you say no to things that you should not be doing. Every yes is a cost. Every time you say yes, you're saying no to something else. And what mature people get is they get comfortable with the word no. And that was something that I learned that was a hard lesson. I was saying yes to everything, and now I don't say yes to everything. It will give you the gift of more bandwidth. So maturity is a gift, whether it's something that you're going to wait around for and, you can go the easy way or you can go the hard way. You're going to get more mature. It's going to happen to you, and you're going to have to do these things. Are you going to do it kicking and screaming and fighting and having just sort of a miserable 20s and 30s and 40s? Or are you going to learn how to become mature and accept the gifts, benefit from all the things that maturity can give you? Do you practice it? Do you work on it? Science says we develop it, that it's not something that just comes naturally with age, but we work towards it. So here's some small steps if you're looking to try to practice with maturity. Practice delayed gratification. That might mean putting money away that you don't spend. That might mean setting your phone down for a while and walking away from your phone. That might mean exercising when you want to sit on the couch and watch TV. Reframing setbacks. Instead of, boy, I failed, try, I just learned something. That's emotional maturity right there. So try to reframe these situations where you have something bad happen. Seek feedback from other people. That's right. You just don't have to wait till your boss comes to you and gives you feedback. You can ask for it, or you can ask for it from your coworkers. Immature minds avoid criticism. Mature minds invite constructive criticism in, or maybe even if it's not so constructive, so we can get better. Pause before reacting. Think about that. Think about a question you could ask that person that you would be initially reactive and say, well, that's stupid, or I don't agree with you, or can't believe that you believe a thing like that. Think of a question. Think of a pause for a moment, or even just think, you know what? That's cool. Believe something other than I do. Maybe it's something I can look into. And also shift your focus outwards. Ask what is this choice I'm doing? How's that going to affect other people? Instead of making decisions that are about you, talk about decisions that bridge you to other people. That's social maturity. So if you bring it all together, maturity isn't just about age. It's about how we think, how we feel, how we respond. It's part of our brain's wiring of self-control and all the other things we just talked about, resilience, relationships. It's getting away from the ego and going to the everybody. It's a gift. It makes productivity easier. It makes your personal life's productivity easier, reduces friction, steadies emotions, gives us perspective, frees up energy, and allows us to say no to some things. So if you think about, all these tools and hacks that people have when it comes to productivity, the biggest upgrade might not be a new app. It might not be a new planner. It may not be your second brain, although second brains are great. It might be just you cultivating the gift of maturity, giving that gift to yourself. All right, everyone, thanks so much. Appreciate you listening. If you have anything to say or comments, put them right down here in the chat or email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. I would love to hear from you. And if you could recommend this to a friend, like this, put a comment in there, I'd appreciate it. Thanks so much. Have a great day.